Hey guys, so a follow-up on my gun control video in the US. Now it's become more of a heated debate with someone in the comment section about guns in the US, and I've spoken to a few different people, and it more or less always comes back to a hypothetical struggle, hypothetical battle from the people against the government. And yeah, I don't see the people winning that at all. It just no. So the Second Amendment was drafted when, or shortly after, America gained its independence after a long bloody battle with the English. And then you had a massive civil war, and there was instability and all that stuff. And in that time period, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, in case the government turned tyrannical and the people had to fight against the government, it was feasible. It was, because back then we didn't have choppers and tanks and advanced military tactics and drones, but now we do. So it doesn't really work. There's one reason to owning a gun, and that's because you like guns, and that's accepted in many countries. A lot of European countries like Germany, you can own a firearm. Canada, you can own a firearm, and their mass shootings are significantly less than what you get in America. Shortly after the Vegas shootings, I think within 2 weeks, you had a neo-Nazi unloading a handgun. I think it was a handgun. Unloading a gun into a crowd of people. Thankfully, no one died. I don't think anyone was seriously injured. But does that count as a mass shooting as well? This year alone has been over 200 mass shootings in America. In 2015, there was 375 mass shootings. I think I read on the BBC website. Over 1,000 people were injured. I think 180 people died. I have to double check that number, but that's a lot of people. Regardless of how many decimal points the percentage is of gun crime being an issue, that's a lot of people who died because of what? No gun restrictions? Now in the comments, it went back and forth and it got a little bit heated. So I'd rather do a video where you can hear the tone of voice, because it's too easy to take the written word wrong. Even with perfect grammar, you'll take that sentence as the tone you're reading it in. And I don't want this to seem like an insult, but from an outsider's perspective, from someone who lives in a country where we don't really have guns, and the guns that we do have, they're super strict on. It's crazy, especially when you look around the rest of the world to other countries in Europe that have guns that don't have this level of gun crime. You look again at Canada, that doesn't have this level of gun crime, and I'm pretty certain you can own more or less every single gun in America you can own in Canada. I think there's different types of licenses, but more or less you get what you want. But they're a little more sensible with the regulations. Now, we went into it, and I went on about, if you're on a watch list, you shouldn't have a firearm. The rebuttal was, there are many different reasons to be on a watch list, and yes, I get it, and hell, I'm probably on a watch list as well. I find religion fascinating, so I study a lot of different religions, including Islam. I am an amateur historian, so I've looked at historical battles and historical warfare, which again I find interesting. including making things like bombs, making traps and things like that. So I would assume that I would be on some type of watch list. So if I then take that area of what I've been looking at, and then my browser history comes up with, I'm also looking at far right extremist things, okay, yeah, there would need to be an actual reason for me to look at that. Now, the first time I did this video, because this is the second or third time I've recorded now, again after a night shift, I went on about Amber Rudd's new law, which I'm not gonna really go into this time, but I will do another video on that on vidme, because I put more content on vidme than on YouTube. But all those things, all my browser history and all that crap, brings up a profile, and then you can match that profile to other people's profiles and see how much of a risk I actually am. If you take that method, which we know from Edward Snowden, everyone is being watched. The government is watching everything. They're turning webcams on, they're turning cameras on the phone on. Hell, if you go through Facebook, if you have the Facebook app on your phone, Facebook will turn your microphone and your camera on without you knowing. You're being watched constantly anyway. So you take a rational, a sensible approach, and you match the characteristics of previous mass shooters. Okay, you're not going to catch everyone. It won't account for, that one person who just snaps, has a bad day, and then unloads it on everyone else. But you will build up profiles on people who are more likely to commit mass acts of terrorism, who go out and do mass shootings. All these people are tracked anyway. We are all tracked anyway. It is the modern way of government controlling, and the UK government is just as bad as the US government with this. But it's just sensible things that would save lives. It's a really bad cup of tea. Anyway, going back to the whole thing, because when I talk to people online about this, and there's been a fair few people I talk to about it, it does always come back to the people being able to protect themselves against the government. And it just, I don't see that working. And here's why. Okay, so you've got the average Joe, the average citizen. Now, I know not every military personnel in that hypothetical situation is going to stay with the military. I know a ton of people are going to go AWOL. But not everyone will. There will still be people who do exactly what they're told because they believe in the government. That happens in even in North Korea, that happens. It's, well, again, it's a subject for another video, but it's propaganda brainwashing, making you think that you need to do it because that's how you be a patriot and that's how you serve your country and you're the best person ever for doing it. But again, that's a topic for another video. So let's say you've got your nice little militia group and you've got a few military personnel and you've got a few standard people who are learning, they're fairly good with it, and you've all got your brilliant guns with all those amazing aftermarket modifications. You're not going against an army from 100 years ago, and you're not going against Middle Eastern armies. You're going against the United States government, who is currently being led by a dictator. Now, I'll get to why I call him a dictator in a bit, but they will send out drones. Now, drones don't work in close quarters, and they don't do precision killing. They take out a large group, which is what the aim would be. They're not just going to take out you, they're going to take out your neighbours, your neighbourhood. You can stop a drone, you can get an effective jammer, but that's one tool that they have. They also have helicopters, choppers, military choppers. Oh man, when you see it in TV and films and video games, it's fantastic. It's amazing. You've got your protagonists and they're there, and maybe there's a window or you're on top of a building, and then just out of nowhere, this monster chopper will come up. And the protagonist has to run, and there's guns shooting, there's bullets everywhere and broken glass, and it's brilliant to watch. Thing is though, military choppers aren't designed to fight that kind of close combat. They're designed to take out the targets at long range. So you're not likely to know that the chopper's there targeting you until long after it's fired and you've got no hope of fighting it off anyway. Then you've got tanks. Then you've got the other military personnel. And then you've got the scariest thing of all, nuclear weapons. Now, I think I've been very clear in the past, whether it's here, Facebook, Twitter, vidme, my opinion on Donald Trump. And it's not exclusive to Donald Trump, it is his entire family, because as far as I can tell, they are all grotesque monsters. Donald Trump wouldn't hesitate in dropping a nuke on US soil. And first off, he's not even sure what is US soil. I'm pretty sure he thinks Puerto Rico is a foreign country. He went to, where was it? The Canary Islands or the Virgin Islands. And he clearly didn't understand that that was part of US territory. Yeah, okay, that's a problem. In addition to that, when he first got into office, he said the most stupid thing, which could possibly be the most dangerous thing he's ever said. Why can't we just drop nukes on people? This ignoramus doesn't understand what a nuclear weapon does, and he doesn't care about the body count that it will rack up. Genuinely doesn't give a fuck. He will murder as many people as he cares to in any one of his little bitch fits, because he just doesn't care. People versus the governments. This day and age, particularly in the wealthier countries like Britain, like America, it doesn't come down to firearms. It comes down to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the right to protest. That is how you effectively fight your government. That's how you effectively change things. Because right now, from what I can see from an objective standpoint, you have that reason to start fighting the government. I'm not advocating it. I'm not advocating you take up arms. But I am advocating that you protest peacefully a lot, because they are taking the piss. This morning I read an article, Betsy DeVos is now stripping away rights that disabled children have in schools. Now this is a woman whose career in general is horrible. She's spent her entire career trying to take away money from public schools and put it into private schools. And yet she is in charge of education in America. That straight away is unforgivable. It's the stupidest thing ever. But it doesn't end there. You also have the head of the EPA right now is someone who has sued the EPA and who doesn't think that companies or corporations should have any restrictions on them whatsoever. So lead poisoning in the water, which actually is happening and has happened for months and months, maybe even a full year, maybe longer. He doesn't see the issue with that, whereas the EPA should have stopped that. They should have stepped in. You have Jared Kushner, who failed in his application for the classified access to classified information. He failed 4 bloody times. And yet he's still roaming around. No one really knows what he's doing in the White House, but he's there. I think I read that there was over 400 mistakes. I don't think that was in one application. I think it was 400 in total. But still, that's not acceptable. Not even a little bit. But then you have Trump, the dictator. And he is a dictator. He has the mindset of a dictator because he doesn't lead. He barks orders and expects things to get done. Now, I've got a few stepsisters. I've got nieces. I've got female friends. All these women, when they go on a date with someone, the best advice I give is don't judge the man on how he's treating you. Judge him on how he treats the waiter. You can learn a lot about someone by how they treat someone they don't think they have to treat well. I was going to say this man, but I don't think he qualifies as a man. This pathetic baby spits and barks at the Secret Service that are meant to be protecting him. Hell, if recent reports are to be believed, he's actually bankrupt the Secret Service, and members of the Secret Service haven't been getting paid. Yet they've had to do a shitload of overtime. He doesn't treat anyone well unless he thinks he can get something out of it. And as soon as he gets something out of it, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about people at all. He doesn't do the legwork. He came and he said that he had an amazing plan to take care of ISIS, and it was a secret, but it was amazing. It was the best plan ever. ISIS is still running around. In fact, October 4th, there was an ISIS ambush. Sadly, military personnel lost their lives. And what was his response? Fuck all. Until he was forced into talking about it during a live interview with the press. And then this horrible excuse of a human being lied, saying that he's doing more with the grieving families than any other president. Completely untrue, and it's easy to prove that wrong. And when he does actually reach out to the families, he comes up with something grotesque like he knew what he was getting into. I remember a few years ago, I remember thinking George Bush was as low as it could possibly go. With how he spoke, with how he addressed people. Man, I was wrong. He doesn't do any of the research. He's a pathological liar. He has such a small ego that he would rather scream and bitch at people than actually take responsibility and go, you know what? I fucked up. Turns out this is going to take more than a few days of me thinking about it. I'm going to crack on. I'm going to do my research. We are going to come back with something better. But no, he didn't. He keeps moaning that he couldn't strip away the Obamacare when he didn't actually do any of the policies. He just barked and yelled at people for doing it. And it's not like he's yelling at just Democrats. He's yelling at Republicans, and Republicans are the only reason why he's still in office. I don't get why he's being protected. Leave him in power long enough and he will start a third world war. Now this annoys me, this frightens me, this pisses me off that someone so moronic with such a tiny ego is in such a place of authority because, well, first off, if America gets into a war with anyone, Britain, England, the UK, we're going to be right along with you. So it doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what the reason is. If Donald Trump decides to drop a nuclear weapon on North Korea, which cannot retaliate, North Korea cannot hit the US, they cannot hit US soil. But if Donald Trump, and he's such a little man, decides to drop a nuke on North Korea, that will start a war. Possibly with Russia, Definitely with China. I'd say definitely with Japan as well, really, because it's a fucking nuke. Millions of people will be slaughtered. But it won't just be the US versus these countries. It'll be the US and the UK versus these countries. He's not a leader. He has the mindset of a dictator. But, yeah. That'll be me going off on a tangent. So, yeah, gun control. There's one reason to have a gun. That's because you like guns. That's fair enough. But look at what the rest of the world does. Australia had a mass shooting years ago and they went, you know what, no, fuck it. One person fucked it up for everyone, no guns. America doesn't have to do that. America can learn from its neighbour. It can learn from Canada. It can learn from Germany. It can learn from a number of European countries that have legal firearms and don't have anywhere near the amount of mass shootings of gun crime that America has. It's not about the Second Amendment, because if you have to take up arms against the US government, you're going to lose. And you're not doing it now. You're not. You have the perfect excuse to, because you have ICE officials, a branch of the government, going into schools, taking children. 2 days ago, I read an article where ICE officials not wearing a uniform, in fact, in none of the cases I've read, they've been wearing uniform. They go into private property, into a private building site, and they essentially, they kidnap. I don't want to say arrest because the guy wasn't charged, but they kidnap a man from his place of work. They weren't invited onto the property, they just strolled on. A few hours later, he was released from custody with no charges at all because they fucked up. And this isn't the first time that they've done it. They've waited outside of courthouses. As I've said, we have reports of them going into schools. They are attacking the people. And America isn't just white America. America was founded by immigrants. I nearly said every American there, but there are Native Americans. But if you're not a Native American, you came from a family of immigrants. In fact, Donald Trump's, I think his grandfather was an immigrant. You have the excuse, but you're not taking it because you don't want to take it. And I'm not encouraging picking up arms and physically doing acts of violence. It has to be protests. The Second Amendment is a nice thing to throw in. The First Amendment is how you get shit done. Sensible gun control, that's it. Still a really bad cup of tea. Okay, that's me done. I know I got a bit rambly at the end there, but it's like 1 o'clock, I think 2 o'clock. I did a night shift last night. I've got another night shift tonight. Should really be asleep thinking about it. Yeah. I don't mean to offend anyone, but just be a little bit sensible. Anyway, this will probably be the last type of video like this I do on YouTube. I will do political videos and everything else on vidme. I do more stuff on vidme. Just more stuff. It's easier for me to put into folders. So if you just like archery, you can go watch archery. If you just like the cooking, you can do cooking. I haven't done cooking in a while, actually. Not a video, anyway. I'll do burgers next week. I might do burgers. I'll do a really nice cheeseburger thing, yeah. But yeah, if you like the more political stuff, the more social topics, then you know my link to vidme will be down below. My link to Twitter will be down below, where I do random stuff. I'm on Twitter more than anything else, because why not? And if you want to have a gander at me shop, because I now have a shop, particularly if you're in the UK or in Europe, not necessarily America just yet, then the link for that will be down below as well. Okay, now I'm going to go to sleep because I'm fucked.